In the Golden Globe race, Kirsten Neuschäfer of South Africa has made history as the first woman to win a solo, round-the-world race by crossing the finish line of the ancestor of the Vendée Globe in La Sable this Thursday at 21:43 and 47 seconds Central European Time. The South African sailor has achieved one of the greatest accomplishments in ocean racing. Winner of the Golden Globe race, without assistance or technology, after 235 days, 5 hours, 44 minutes, and 4 seconds of racing, final time will be determined after the calculation of penalties for using fuel and bonuses. Kirsten became the first woman to win a solo round-the-world race under sail. This achievement was celebrated in La Sable, now more than ever the world capital of single-handed ocean racing. At 40 years of age, the South African Kirsten Neuschäfer completed an 8-month-long journey, alone in the face of the elements, without contact, collecting rainwater to survive. Her feat is all the more impressive as her world tour was marked by a rescue. In the heart of the Indian Ocean, she helped Finnish sailor Tapio Lehtinen. Kirsten welcomed him on her boat before he was transferred to a cargo ship, and Kirsten continued her journey. Kirsten's performance is as unprecedented as it is impressive. She is the first woman to win a solo race around the world. Many in the world of ocean racing are congratulating the South African. Jan Ellis, a regular in the sailing world, praises the sailor who loves adventure with a capital A. "What she has achieved is incredible," said Catherine Chabot, the first woman to complete the Vendée Globe, 1996 to 1997. "There is something extraordinary in the air," said the sailor. In reply, Kirsten Neuschäfer said, "I am very happy to see all the people and this extraordinary atmosphere. Of all my adventure, I think that the arrival here with the crowd, the enthusiasm, was the most memorable. My boat was my companion. I talked to her a lot. I even got angry with her, but I love her very much. It's a fast, elegant boat, on which I worked a lot for a year. I had the will to win as soon as I registered for the race, and I did all my preparations accordingly. I wanted to win, not as a woman. I didn't want to be in a separate category, but to compete on equal terms with all the skippers. I didn't think about the long-term future, but more about what I wanted to do in the near future. I want to go on long hikes in the wilderness with my dog for a few months."
Happy to be here today and celebrate Kirsten's win of the GGR. Finally, we're still waiting for Abhilash, who's about 100 miles from La Sable right now. He had a very slow night. We're expecting him in sometime tomorrow around midday. And then there's Michael Gook, who is about 1600 miles back from that. So we've still got 2 more to come. And also Jeremy is still sailing in Chichester class. So I think that just about covers. I know everyone is interested in the official time and fuel penalties and time credits for Kirsten's effort, first of all, to assist and rescue Tapio. She had a time credit on there of 35 hours. We also allocated a fuel allowance of 30 litres. We estimated that Kirsten will have used about 25 litres of fuel in the process. Why do we have to think about fuel? Under the rules of the notice of race, every entrant is given 25 litres of free fuel without any penalty. They're all filled up here on the marina before they leave, and then at the end of the voyage we fill the tanks up again, and we then know exactly how much fuel they've used, and we give them the free 25, and every extra litre is a 2-hour time penalty. The environment is a big consideration in any sporting event, and we put the time penalty to encourage alternate energy, wind generators, solar panels and so on. But nonetheless, we need the fuel on board in case of emergencies. So we don't want to ban engines and all that sort of stuff. They're there for safety. And it was kind of ironic that the only fuel that you actually used was during the rescue of Tapio. Kirsten's total fuel consumption for the 233 days was only 30 litres and 30.77 litres, I think, for the whole voyage. So there is no extra fuel penalty for Kirsten. And when we add the time credit for Abhilash's rescue, the official time for Kirsten in the GGR is 233 days, 20 hours, 43 minutes and 47 seconds. So I hope that answers that one. I think that's all I'd like to say now for the moment, but it's a great day for Kirsten, it's a great day for the GGR, it's a great day for Les Arts d'Alone, and thanks also to you, the media, for covering this story.
Avant d'ouvrir les questions, Kirsten, est-ce que tu veux dire un mot par toi-même ou tu veux répondre aux questions?
J'aimerais bien dire un mot aussi. Je suis très émue d'être là, je suis très honorée. Et d'abord, j'aimerais remercier Don McIntyre parce que tout a commencé avec lui et sans lui, il n'y aurait pas ce rêve. Et aussi son équipe, Jane, Sébastien, Lutz, tous les autres. C'est formidable, l'enthousiasme, la dédication avec lesquels ils ont travaillé. Et puis, je veux remercier les Sables d'Olonne, le maire, bien sûr, et tout le monde qui était là à la foule pour l'accueil incroyable, un moment que je ne vais jamais oublier. Je veux remercier les autres concurrents parce que sans eux, c'est pas une course. Et c'était des concurrents durs. Simon, c'était dur. il était toujours devant moi. Et Abhilash aussi, je savais toujours qu'il était prêt. Et ça m'a forcé de donner mon mieux, de me forcer moi-même, d'essayer de naviguer aussi rapidement possible. Et après, je veux remercier mes sponsors. CPO, un des sponsors principaux, et beaucoup d'autres sponsors, des petits sponsors et des plus grands sponsors, mais sans eux et tous les gens qui m'ont aidé, je ne serais pas là. Donc, grand merci.
Nous avons un micro à faire circuler dans la salle. Merci de le prendre. Et puis, si vous pouvez de vous présenter avant de poser votre question, puisque c'est retransmis en direct partout dans le monde, donc autant que tout le monde puisse en profiter. Et il y a une traduction simultanée. Je remercie les traductrices qui sont dans leur boîte derrière. Donc ne parlez pas trop vite pour faciliter le travail de traduction et les échanges. Allez-y, la première question.
Thank you. Katie Stickland from Yachting Monthly. I'd like to ask Kirsten, at what point did you think you would give up, if at all, and how did you keep going?
I never thought I'd give up. There was no reason for me ever to think that way because the boat was doing well and I had all the confidence in the boat, and ultimately it all revolves around the boat because the boat's carrying your life and the boat's your tool for the race, and the boat didn't let me down. So I never doubted that I'd get to the finish line.
Hello, François Dacier from AFP. From what we understood, you learned that you had won yesterday. You were thinking Abhilash was ahead. Could you take us through what went through your mind at that moment? Was it release of emotion? Because apparently you thought you were in second place, right?
Yeah, I was expecting the worst and hoping for the best. And I knew that we should be pretty close, and I had a few hours here and there of calms that I didn't move. So I wasn't sure whether he was ahead of me or close to me, but I just assumed he's ahead of me so that I wouldn't arrive disappointed. And then when I was 7 miles out of Les Sables d'Olonne, the first boat arrived to say hello, and they said, "You know, you're first." Wow. So that was the moment that I really knew that, well, okay, that's how it is.
Bonjour, Thomas Grimaud, Radio Sable. Maintenant que vous êtes la première femme, here, you have a young boy. Maintenant vous êtes la première femme à avoir gagné une course autour du monde. Est-ce que vous allez rembarquer pour la prochaine GGR et devenir la première femme à gagner 2 tours du monde?
Je ne sais pas. Je ne sais vraiment pas. Pas forcément, parce que j'ai fait ce rêve, j'ai réalisé, et maintenant je pourrais passer à autre chose et laisser l'espace pour quelqu'un d'autre. Ouais. Je sais pas. J'ai vraiment vécu dans l'instant, dans le moment, donc j'ai pas trop projeté loin dans l'avenir. One day after another.
Bruce Gain, I'm writing an article for Sail magazine, and my question is, well, first the statement, my opinion, to say that you know every millimeter of your boat would be a euphemism, I think. And I think that people talk about the race primarily, almost exclusively, but what advice would you give to those who are thinking about preparing their boat? And I understand, your learning and your practice, and you're getting your hands dirty, preparing your boat is capital. So what advice would you give those? I mean, for telling them what they really must do in order to do that, in terms of hands-on muscle learning and getting their boats ready for this.
Well, I would say that 80% of the whole race is in the preparation, just getting to the start line. Getting to the start line is the most difficult step, in my opinion. And it's of huge benefit to do as much of the work in refit as you can yourself. To know every nut and bolt and every corner of your own boat, to do the work yourself, because it will enable you to fix stuff out at sea. Or if you're lucky, you would have done the work properly and you won't have to fix anything. And get to know your boat at sea. People said to me, well, why did you sail to South Africa and then to France? Well, it was a fantastic sea trial for me to learn my boat and to discover what I can still improve before the race, and to get good at, because each boat has its own peculiarities, and to learn to sail your boat to the max, to understand what sails you'll best need on your boat, how it's going to perform, how you can improve things, and that's all in the preparation for beforehand. So.
And the mechanic you worked with, I mean, that was, I imagine, key. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. Eddie Arsenault, without him, it wouldn't have been what it is, and the boat wouldn't have been what it is. And I learned a lot from Eddie, because he taught me a lot. He taught me how to fix things. He taught me, well, everything I know about refitting boats. So.
Yeah, I had the good fortune to speak with him, and yeah, it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Great. That's great.
Uh, 233 days is a pretty long time. Could you explain to us what's a typical day on the race? Is there a routine you respected to keep on moving, or what's a typical day on a boat in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, well, when everything's smooth and there's no storms or breakage or anything to deal with, the day starts with a cup of coffee, as long as you still have coffee on board. Just get your mind together. And then you need the time signal in the morning, so you can set your watch, so you can get your sun sight. And then you get your sun sight, and you get your first position line for the morning, and you work out when your noon sight is going to be. So it revolves a little bit around the sight. And then walk on the deck, check that nothing's chafed, nothing's broken, everything's fine. Tweak the sails a little bit, see where you can get the boat to go a little bit faster, keep the boat clean. That's pretty much it. Try and incorporate a little sleep in the daytime so that you can be awake at night if you have to be, and then make some time for reading and leisure and just be outside and enjoy the sailing. So yeah.
Thank you. I have a couple more, if that's okay. From what we were told, you slept on the boat last night, right? That speaks about your relationship with that boat. Why did you choose to sleep on the boat? I guess the organization might probably offered you.
There was nowhere else to go. No, I'm joking. The boat is home, and it has been for a very long time. When I first got onto the boat in Newfoundland, and I started living on the boat, and I sailed across to Prince Edward Island. It was cold. I got to Prince Edward Island and it was blowing 40 knots, and it wasn't the right conditions to get the boat out on the crane. So I said, oh, that's fantastic. I'll go and sit out at anchor for another 2 or 3 days, and I was happy. I was really sad to get off the boat. For me, it's home. And I was happy to be back on the boat last night. I don't think I would have been able to sleep anywhere else. I would have woken up and it would have been too strange. So.
How do you imagine your relationship with the boat after the race? What do you think
it's difficult because I've been thinking a lot about what am I going to do with the boat, and I kind of have to sell it because I owe money on the boat. And I kept on saying to the boat, come on, you've got to move really fast to get to the finish so that I can sell you and forget you. And it's like, no, it's not like that. I love you, my boat. So for me, it will be very difficult to say goodbye to the boat because it's more than a boat. But it's a boat with a purpose. So unless I have a project for the boat, it needs to go to someone else who's going to follow through and keep her moving and keep her healthy and keep her an amazing boat that she is. Boats shouldn't stand around. They shouldn't just be owned. Boats need projects and they need to be used. And I want this boat to keep on being used like that. So.
Yes, hi, it's Morten from your magazine in Germany. Kirsten, can you describe for us the situation around your rescue mission of Tapio?
Yes, certainly. I got the message to say that Tapio's boat had sunk, and I didn't know how close I was to Tapio, but I knew I should be close because we were both at the photo gate together. So the moment I got the message, I phoned race control and I said, where is he and what can I do? And they said, you're the closest, so get to him. And then that's it. I went into the mode of get to him as quickly as possible, and I did everything, be it motoring, be it putting more sail up, pushing her hard, staying at the helm all night. So that was my main focus, is get to where he was. And then, I've never done something like this before, but it was amazing how difficult it is to spot a life raft at sea in the waves. Because he could see me. He was on the radio. He says, I can see you. I'm like, I can't see you. I just can't see you at all. And he kept on saying, no, keep going this way. No, change, come more this way. And I had a line ready to throw to him, but I had rigged it on the wrong side because I had interpreted that I would arrive at a different angle. But he also had a line. And the first time I passed, he threw his line. I caught it, I pulled the life raft alongside, and he came aboard. And then it's like, okay, that's all right. And then the ship arrived. The ship arrived not long after I had got Tapio on board. And the ship's crew was super professional. They got onto the radio, and I said to them, okay, how are we going to do this? And they said they're going to store the boat, their ship, as close as they can to me, and they're going to form a lee to their port side. And then they said, and then you can come alongside and Tapio can climb the ladder. And I'm like, I can't come alongside. I've got to keep enough space. And then they said, okay, let's just think about it. And then Tapio said, tell them they must throw a line. We'll catch it. I'll get into the raft, and they can pull me alongside in the raft, and I can leave on the boat again. So that's what we did. But getting as close as I possibly could to the ship was the adrenaline part, because there's a lot of swell still, and the ship's got massive freeboard, and I've got this tiny little rig in comparison. But everything went smoothly, and Tapio boarded the ladder, and the ship's crew, they were amazing. So, yeah.
What were the sea conditions exactly, the wave height and wind conditions?
I mean, fortunately, it wasn't too bad. By the time the ship arrived, it was probably 15 to 20 knots of wind, roughly, and the sea was dropping off. So, I don't know. Maybe
through the line, for example, was it like when you actually...
Yeah, well, I managed to get close enough that they could throw the line on deck, so the line actually landed on the deck of Minnehaha. Tapio caught it,
right.
and...
I mean, what were the conditions like at that point?
Please use a mic when you ask, because for the translation it's easier.
At that point, I was in the lee that the ship had formed,
okay.
And that calms the sea down substantially.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Cass Schmidt from PBO, Practical Boat Owner in the UK. Going back to the question before last about your future plans. To go a little bit into history, we know that the Golden Globe is the first solo round the world race, and the sort of grandfather of many since then. But before that was the original solo transatlantic race, which is the first solo ocean race. And if I've done my research properly, there's never been anybody to complete both the solo around the world race and the solo transatlantic. And there's one happening in just over a year. So that might be an idea, and if you could then, in addition to being the first person to complete both, be the first person to win both, I think that would be an amazing story. So I wonder if you would consider that.
Well, the seeds for new ideas will be planted.
One more question for me. Were you ever frightened at any time during the race?
I never feared for my life, to be honest, or for my boat's safety. I think I've gone through life with an inherent trust in life and trust to go with my heart. Same as going through Africa, people said, you're going to die of malaria and you're going to get murdered and you're going to die of thirst in the Sahara and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, I don't feel that in my heart. And on this race, I never once thought this was getting really bad. But in saying that, I was lucky. I didn't have any really nasty storms like Ian, for example. And that's a large portion of luck. So maybe if I hadn't been in worse conditions or been in a knockdown rollover like Jean-Luc, I might well have feared for my life. So yeah.
Kirsten, I'll ask a quick question. Did you ever think of did you ever question why you were doing the GGR? And what was your lowest point? Because often in your calls, you were really down. Okay, so the lowest point, and did you question why?
Yes, I think in the lowest point I might well have questioned why I'm doing it, but I kind of knew why I was doing it, and I knew I was there because I wanted to be there. But the low points were the calms, and the worst was the doldrums. And that was, fortunately I love swimming, so that was the thing that kept me sane, because if I got too frustrated, I just jump overboard and swim, and I'm like, I need distance from the boat, I need distance from all that, and just swim and then come back again. So that was my kind of sobriety point there. But the calms were rough, yeah.
Kirsten, Christophe from Vols et Voiliers. Yesterday was a symbolic day for many reasons, but it was also the Liberty Day in South Africa. What is your definition of liberty?
Well, in the South African sense, I mean, it's Mandela Day, and of all the people I know, I'm not a great person for role models and hero worshipping people, but if there's one person I wish I had met, it's that man. He means a lot to me, Nelson Mandela. And I love South Africa. I love South Africa the way it is now, and without him it wouldn't have been. Equality, gender equality, racial equality, a democracy. In the sense of Freedom Day for South Africa, that's what it means to me. And the sacrifice that someone like Nelson Mandela made is immense. So, yeah.
And your journey is going to be, on a symbolic point of view, meaning a lot, talking about what you just mentioned.
Sorry, could you?
I mean, your journey, what you have just achieved, it's part of this global description you've made of what you like and what you aspire to. So you must be pretty proud of that on that point of view too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy. You know, speaking of what does liberty mean, I'm happy that in this day and age, in this generation that I was born in, I can do these things if I want to. No one's going to stop me. My mother's generation, she could have, or women could have back then, but the battle would have been a lot tougher. So yeah, you know, it's all part of it. And I didn't actually think about what the date was yesterday, but the fact that it was Mandela Day, that it was Liberty Day, means a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks. Sorry, Katie Stickland from Yachting Monthly again. I wanted to know, how did you choose your routing without modern technology, and do you think you did a good job planning your passage around the world?
The descent of the Atlantic, I just went on feel, because I had a good idea of what I'm letting myself in for, and it worked pretty well. And then, to be honest, the Southern Ocean goes south and get wind, so there's not that much you need to do in terms of routing. Where it became complicated was coming back up the Atlantic. How I chose the routing was Ocean Passages of the World, and they suggested keep east. And I should have kept more east, I should have stuck to what they said. But I actually started doubting myself because I kept on getting asked, why are you going so far east? And then I thought, maybe there's a hint in this, or maybe I shouldn't, or I started questioning myself and I stopped going east and I went north and I got stuck in the horse latitudes firstly, and I don't know, 4 or 5 days went away there, which and it was kind of borderline because March and April's routing was very different. So those 4 days were quite crucial, and then by the time I got to my east position for the equator, I'd already lined up for that. Couldn't change much and suddenly head west. I got there a few days too late, I think. And, well, that could have killed the race for me in terms of winning. It really could have, and it did upset me for quite a while, 2 weeks bobbing around in the doldrums. So, but that's what the race is about, right? You don't have weather information, so you go by the literature, and you might be lucky, you might be unlucky. But I should have stuck to my guns originally, and I think, I don't know, I'm just assuming. Might have gone a little bit better, but it might not have. So.
And in those moments of frustration, how did you push through to keep going?
Well, you kind of have to whether you want to or not, because even if you wanted to quit, you've still got to get out of the doldrums. And then, you know, I mean, I wasn't going to quit, but the point is then it's not survival in the sense of I'm going to die now, but you've got to get out of the doldrums. So you've just got to use every little breath of wind, and I didn't enjoy it, but it did teach me a lot, like sailing squalls. There's a squall, there's a cloud, you start observing more, and you don't just switch on the motor and motor through it all. So, and that's part of the race and part of discovering and learning and all the rest. So it worked out the way it should.
Okay. So you never thought about quitting, and Jean-Luc told a lot about the mental game that is this race. So from what I understood, you talked about swimming around the boat, and before the race, you told me about the fact that you brought pictures and books to be in the mind of someone else when time got tough. Am I missing something in like keeping up the good mood on the boat? Is there anything that you used on a daily basis that helped you through the day?
Yeah, you're right. Swimming, reading. Well, swimming when it was warm. I didn't enjoy the cold swimming. But you know, I think you have challenges and obstacles that you have to surpass on a race like this. For example, I was getting barnacles down in the Southern Ocean when I was becalmed, and I didn't really want to swim there because on a few occasions I was about to have a swim and then a little shark, little ones, arrived, but enough to, I don't want to swim. I'll enjoy you from the boat. And it was cold, but at some other point I could see the barnacles are getting worse and worse. So eventually I did have a dive, and it was cold and I didn't enjoy it, and there's a lot of swell, so it's difficult. But I saw there were lots of barnacles, and I didn't sleep all night. Every time I closed my eyes, I just saw these big barnacles on like a reef on my boat. And the next morning I got up, I hove to, and I thought I've got to push on through. I've got to get rid of this barnacle thing, even just for my mind, my peace of mind. And then I did, and then I felt good. You know, it invigorated me. I was in the cold water, and I had successfully seen all those barnacles scraped off and sinking to the ocean floor. So even the little obstacles that you're presented with, when you surpass them, it gives you a kick. It makes you want to keep going. So some of it just fell into place naturally.
Cass Schmidt again from PBO, and related to the last question about your reading, what reading stuck out for you, and what will you remember the most having read on this passage, and how did it help you?
Oh, that's difficult to say because I read such a vast variety of different books. But I had two very special books on board. That I had Jean-Luc's book, which I wanted to save as a treat. And I decided I'm not going to read it till I've passed Rio de la Plata on my way up again. So I was looking forward to that all the time. And it was a great read. I really enjoyed it. And I had Tapio's book on board as well in Finnish. So I started reading that beforehand because it was a bit difficult and I didn't have a dictionary, so I had to keep on repeating some of the things. But those two books were great because there were things I could relate to. So those two books definitely stand out for me. And then I took a whole lot of my favorite books and books I hadn't known, and random books that people had given me. Novels sometimes. I love historical novels that are novels with real characters, but they teach you about the history, and you can just sink into them and be in a different world. So, for example, Dalia Namatia, she's a South African author, and she writes novels set in historical backgrounds, and I really love her books. So.
Rupert Holmes from Gutting World. Two questions. First, how many times did you stop to clean the barnacles off the hull?
I have to count. I started cleaning barnacles already in the Canaries, and then not a lot, but just get rid of the first few little ones. And then I was becalmed briefly on my way down towards Trinidad, and there I also had a little bit of a dive. And then I didn't get back into the water until I had my big barnacle problem in the Southern Ocean. And there I spent a grand total of 8 hours cleaning barnacles, but not consecutive hours. That was in three dives, because after 2 hours I'd come out and I'd be close on hypothermic. And then I was surprised when I got into the horse latitudes on the way up again that the hull was actually extremely clean, and a lot of the barnacles had died because their little shells were still there, but there was nothing in them. And then I spent time polishing the hull, so it was like she'd been out on the hard. So yeah, and then the doldrums I had nothing to do, so I'd go for a daily dive and wipe off little budding barnacles. And, yeah.
And the second question: were there any other technical issues that you had to attend to on a regular basis?
No, not on a regular basis. Just standard maintenance, checking for chafe, firing up the engine every now and then, greasing things, trying to stop things from rusting too badly. The one technical issue I had was I got a bit of a big wave hit the stern and broke the bracket of the Watson Sea, which was quite important because it's environmentally clean charging of batteries, and I didn't want to burn more fuel than I had to for penalties and all that. So that was actually kind of a fun, how am I going to fix this? And I kept on thinking, what would Eddie have done? and I was, when I did finally fix it, I thought, I think Eddie would be proud of my job. But anyway, I got it back up and running, so that was good. And the hydro vane was amazing, and I have to say, my hydro vane had already done 15,000 miles before I even started the race. So I had a few minor little technical issues with the hydro vane, but nothing I couldn't sort out with zip ties and duct tape. So for the rest, well, I have the bowsprit problem, but there wasn't much I could do about that, and it held. And like I say, it's in the boat in the prep. The prep had been done well in advance, and if it's done well in advance, it's cruisy when you're out there racing. So, yeah.
Désolé, encore une question en français. Il y a le côté sportif, mais il y a le côté humain. Est-ce qu'il y a eu un moment où vous étiez, j'allais dire, en totale communion avec la nature, devant un ciel étoilé ou devant un paysage de mer, en vous disant, voilà, là c'est ma vraie vie, et est-ce que vous voulez bien, s'il y a eu, nous le partager un petit peu?
Oui, j'en ai eu plusieurs de moments. Un moment très spécial, c'était quand je voulais quitter Cape Town. J'étais très frustrée parce que j'avais pas du vent. J'étais à la dérive devant la montagne, Table Mountain. Et à un moment, je me suis dit, ok, mais arrête, regarde comment c'est beau. Et j'avais des baleines partout, juste à côté du bateau. J'avais des baleines, j'avais des dauphins, j'avais des phoques. Et c'était très, très spécial. Et normalement, quand j'étais très émue de ces moments, c'était quand il y avait des animaux. J'avais un autre moment où il y avait un petit oiseau de mer qui était atterri sur le bateau et il a descendu à l'intérieur du bateau et il s'est reposé. Voilà. Et c'était super. Je l'ai pris à la main. Je l'ai mis dans une boîte fermée parce que c'est ce que j'ai appris en Géorgie du Sud et en Antarctique. S'il y a des bateaux, les oiseaux qui atterrissent dans la nuit, c'est à cause de la lumière. Il faut d'abord qu'ils peuvent ajuster leurs yeux au noir. Donc j'ai fait ça, après j'ai pris le petit oiseau à la main, il s'est envolé. Donc ça c'était très spécial. Et toujours quand j'avais des dauphins, toujours c'était spécial. Je ne peux jamais fatiguer de ça. Donc j'avais beaucoup de ces moments, même juste un super coucher de soleil ou voir la lune ou quand le bateau naviguait vraiment à fond avec des vagues et le vent portant. Là aussi c'était wow, c'est pour ça que je suis là.
Wolfgang again. And I guess the question I had, well, you kind of answered it, but the worst breakage you had, you just described, I think, your solar panel difficulties. And I guess sail chafing was, I'm assuming, was an issue. And but the main question though I had was, what was the worst sea conditions you had, and what did you do with the sail, and how did you sail through that, please?
I think the worst conditions were probably when there was a bit of a storm coming my way. So I had enough warning to run up towards the north and get away from it as best as I could. But then after that, I actually followed Robin Knox Johnston's advice, and that was to trail warp.
Okay.
And I had warp out in a bite. The bite altogether was about 70 meters, so I'd let 140 meters of warp out.
Okay.
And I had the hydrovane still steering, and I just let the boat do its thing. And I closed up everything, and there were relative waves breaking over the boat, but you know, she's such a heavy, stable boat that I went down below and I had a snooze, and by then the storm was over and happy days, and on I went. So I think that was probably the worst.
What was the wind angle?
Dead downwind. So everything was coming from behind. She was moving with the weather and the seas, and
right.
Yeah.
But you weren't perpendicular with the seas. And the wind.
I never went perpendicular. Right. Actually, I did at one point in that storm, because something gave on the hydrovane and the rudder twisted, and it was forcing the boat to windward. And I just instinctively ran to the stern and intervened, and in a moment of clarity I knew what to do. So it did probably not take me more than about 10 minutes to get her back downwind, which was good, because you never know when the next really nasty wave is going to come. Right. But yeah, it all worked out well. And again, I was lucky, because there were of the same competitors that had worse conditions than I did.
Peut-être une dernière question, parce qu'on va devoir libérer Kirsten et les autres intervenants.
I'll just put one quick question, Kirsten. You're an adventurer, you're a responsible risk taker. The GGR is a grand adventure. What did you learn about yourself in this voyage?
I might have to sit and think about that a little bit. I don't know whether... I probably did learn new things about myself, but I'm going to have to figure that out, because a lot of the things you learn are in retrospect, to be honest. But I had some reaffirmation of things I think I already knew about myself, and that is follow your dreams, go for it, you know. So,
moi j'ai une question en français. La barre du bateau, ce tiller, semble énorme par rapport à d'autres barres, d'autres bateaux du GGR. Je voudrais savoir si tu as barré toi-même certains moments par plaisir ou par obligation, ou si tu es resté quasiment tout le temps sous pilote, sous conservateur d'allure.
J'ai pas barré beaucoup, très peu en fait. Parfois j'ai barré pour le plaisir, surtout quand je naviguais avec le SPI par exemple. Et parfois j'ai barré avec le hydrovane, juste pour encore aider, voilà. Et dans des conditions fortes, j'avais un moment où j'avais mon génois, le double génois, le vent arrière, un vent fort, peut-être 40 ou 50 nœuds, des grandes vagues, et le bateau surfait. Mais c'était super, j'étais surtoilée, mais je ne voulais pas arrêter parce que tellement c'était bon. Et là, j'ai barré avec le hydrovane en même temps.
Ça nécessite quand même quelques muscles de barrer ce bateau-là, non?
Oui, c'est ça.
C'est assez dur, non?
Oui, c'est dur. Et aussi, j'avais toujours les cordes de choc, les bungee cords. Et si le hydrovane était en train de barrer aussi, j'ai laissé ces choc cords. Et parfois, il fallait tout mon corps, tout mon poids pour barrer. Mais c'était bon. J'ai bien aimé ça.
The last point.
Yeah, one last question. So you didn't say anything about any next race, but I guess we all wonder what's next for Kirsten in the next few months. Not especially another adventure, but what's next for you? Are you going to go back to South Africa to see family, or what's the plan for the next few months for you?
I'd like to get back to South Africa to see family, my father especially. my dogs. And I thought about this. I've got a little corner in South Africa that's like paradise for me. And it often went through my mind. It's the Wild Coast, the Transkei coastline. It's wild, it's beautiful, and there's nothing as relaxing as packing a tent, taking my dog and walking. You can walk for hundreds of kilometers along pristine coastline, camp wild, make little fires at night, and I'm looking forward to doing that. But I must say, another place that I thought of a lot and that I really miss is Prince Edward Island, and I really want to get back there and see those people. They're like a second family. Thank you, John. Thank you for making this thing.